Everybody, welcome to this interview in our March 2023 Staffing Monthly, where we are really just celebrating the women in staffing and the women leaders of staffing. And we're really, I just want to highlight, I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight the stories of the book Together We Rise, which if you've not gotten this, go get it. It's a great book. It's an amazing plane book. It's great to read on a plane. It just really is. It keeps you engaged. But I've had an opportunity to meet with some of the co-authors and just talk about their stories and the adversity and the journeys that they've been on to get to where they're at. And one of the stories in the book that really resonated with me was that of Kim Pope. And this is somebody that I didn't know prior to going on this journey and asking her to interview. But hearing her story, I was like, wow, I feel like I've been down this road. And she's faced some tremendous adversity, had amazing courage to share some of the adversity that she has encountered on her journey. And that journey has been a while in staffing, starting out, really working a desk all the way up to being the chief operating officer of WilsonHCG in Tampa, Florida. And she's been there for over a decade in that position of leadership, steering and guiding the organization. And I am just honored and excited to bring her here to you today. So Kim, thank you for being with us at Staffing Monthly and just sharing a little bit about your journey.
Thank you for having me. It's really humbling to hear you say my story, like kind of some of my background back to me. So thank you.
I can imagine. I cannot even tell you the parallels that I was able to draw from it, but I appreciated the courage that it takes to put that story to paper and have it out there in print in permanency, right? And then and I do encourage the book. I love it. I think that it's not just for maybe women in staffing that are looking for a roadmap to get to the top, or leaders that might be looking for better mentorship. It's also a good book for girl dads that might want to look for ways to provide confidence and maybe a better talk track. Not to jump too far into it, but one of the things that really stuck out to me was an epiphany that you declared that you had. You said that you remember your father telling you that the only person you can change is yourself. Mm-hmm. For a long time, you seemed to believe that, but at some point something changed and you realize that that's not true and that you can change others and you've made it your personal mission. So I just want to talk about that. What is that? What changed for you? What was the moment that you're like, no, I can have a bigger impact. I can play bigger. What was that like for you?
I don't think there was like one moment, but it was a lot of little things over time that I realized, well, reflecting on really where did I feel like I was the most happy and at peace. And it was when I was helping other people or I was adding value to other people, making an impact and, kind of seeing that I could make an influence on other people's lives. That's when I really felt more at peace than just focusing on myself and trying to make myself perfect and looking inward. And I didn't feel at peace. So I think I realized that over probably a couple year period that I just wasn't truly enjoying who I was. But I had always thought that that was what I was brought up to think. And so I should kind of figure out how I can make sure that that's in my everyday life. And once I broke out of that, I really realized that my mission is now just to add value and help others as much as I can. And that I'm at peace with that. And I really try to now influence my daughter in the same way and, and the people I work with. So it was like a lot of things over time, I think. And then the book really helped me kind of put it on paper and actually create some structure to it that I didn't have before.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And so you just mentioned something that I'd like to maybe explore a little bit more is that prior to these little things kind of catalyzing your belief or your mission to help others, you focused internally. How can I be perfect? How can I improve? Do you feel that's a mindset or maybe the word I'm thinking is psychological trap, and I don't know if that's appropriate, but do you think that that's something that's common with women in staffing today?
Yeah, I think especially early on in your career, you're trying to grow. And so you think that by growing is being perfect. Then you realize as you grow that actually failure and being imperfect is what makes you grow. And then you embrace that and accept it. But it was something that, because I didn't have mentors to tell me that. And so it took me a while to work through it myself versus having somebody that could have just said, stop worrying about the little stuff. Stop worrying about your failures. Your failures are actually what makes you closer to success. I needed to hear that. I didn't have that when I was young in my career.
So that's interesting. So I've honestly gone back and forth with this so many times because I've been in a situation where I'm worried about something or I'm trying to achieve something and someone is just like, oh, don't worry about that, right? And it sometimes it doesn't hit right. Sometimes you're like, well, what do you know? Like, it's how can I not worry? How can I turn it off, right? So how do you wrestle with that? Like, how you say that you wish you would have had someone to tell you that, but do you really think that the younger version of you would have actually been ready to receive that message if you had that person?
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. Just because had so much to go through life experiences that I wouldn't have maybe reflected on it. But I would have had the memory of it that then would have helped me a couple years down the road.
Yeah. Yeah,
No.
that's true. You know, it's one of those things like we as parents, we try to impart lessons that drives our kids crazy and we just keep
Yep.
telling ourselves someday they're going to appreciate this.
Eventually it catches up. Yeah, exactly.
We hope, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like it caught up with me. Like I am grateful for my parents and what they
Yeah.
did for me and the lessons. But yeah, no, that's true. So if we know that not everybody's ready to receive that message of like, hey, it's okay to fail. Like,
Mhm.
what do you think is a good way to approach that person that might be dealing with those same mental blocks of like, how do you have that conversation with them?
I just share stories, like here's a situation that I went through. How did I fail at it and come on the other side? Or here's a situation, how it made me feel, and then the next time it happened, the adjustment. So I just share the stories as much as I can because that's really what helps. Then you can relate to them, even though it's probably not the exact same situation, at least relating to what those stories are, which is also when the team or everybody was kind of writing this book, I was like, count me in, because that's sharing the stories is what can, there's 13 other stories that could impact somebody's situation at that time, and you can relate to it over time. And as you grow and in your career, everybody can kind of relate to one or the other at some point.
That's true. That was actually there was two sort of common denominators that I drew from reading the book is that one, so many different paths, amazing women, amazing leaders. The courage to share some of the stories that they told were just incredible, but so many different paths to get to where they were at in leadership, was sort of one common denominator, but the other one was like the themes, of the adversity that they had to go through, the endurance they had to have to get to where they're at were very, very common,
Yeah.
and that's why I was like, I want to interview a number of these co-authors because I feel like a lot of just people in general, maybe especially women as the book points out, but people in general deal with these mental things
Mhm.
where they think it's unique to them. They think that the anxiety they're feeling or the nervousness is unique to them and they try to hide it. And in a sense, they hide from it. Um, I'm going to segue into your chapter title because it's so appropriate to that is that from the outside looking in, things tend to look better than they are, right?
Mhm.
So do you see that playing out? Like, how do you see that playing out with the development of women leaders in staffing?
I think it's gotten better, but I do think early on, yeah, it's kind of this bubble that you try to put this persona out there that, you're perfect, high achievement, all these things. I think a lot of people over the past couple of years really have started to realize vulnerability is more of a strength.
Yeah.
Um, I hear that a lot. And I think that that's really starting to take speed, and people are starting to realize like being more authentic and more open, you actually achieve a lot more and a lot quicker than trying to be this perfect resume or this perfect, background and actions and stuff like that. So for me, writing that book was the outside looking into now realizing, okay, I've come a long way from that. I probably still have a long way to go, but it was really therapeutic to do that and put myself out there. And honestly, I was nervous to finalize and be published and put it out there for the whole world to read it. because I didn't know how was it going to impact me professionally. Were people going to judge my story? All those things went through my head. But I'm glad I did it, because now I've realized like vulnerability really truly is a strength.
It's empowering, it's liberating, right? Because a lot
Yeah.
of times the things that we need to be vulnerable to
Mhm.
are the mental prisons that we put ourselves in. And once
Yeah.
we just expose vulnerability and say, hey, I'm going to open myself up to judgment or the haters. And once you just say, I'm going to open myself up to it, you realize that like it's not as bad as I made it out to be.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
what's some of the feedback that you've gotten from your story, from like kind of giving your testimony in this?
I've actually had a lot of people, especially people I work with, just say, I understand actually now a lot more about you and kind of how you operate and things like that because of understanding your background and in that story. I've had some people come up to me and say, like, I've had the similar situations growing up. And so it made me feel like I wasn't alone. That like just hearing that makes it worth it, like putting it out there.
Yeah, it's so true. And I don't, I'm sure you've heard this. This is probably one of the more popular, I don't know if it's a cliche or adage or whatever it is, but the story, the parable where it's like the little boy is walking down the beach that's littered with starfish and he's just
Mhm.
throwing them in the ocean, as he comes up one by one.
Mhm.
And, the grumpy old man, I'll call him, says, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm, saving this." He's like, "You can't save them all. You can't make a difference." And he's like, "I made a difference to that one,"
Yeah.
and that's what I heard. Like when I read your story, I'm like, wow, that's someone that just realized who she was and realized that you can make a difference. And
Yeah.
I loved it. And I don't often share this probably as much as I should, but I have a personal mission statement is to positively impact the lives of those of the paths I cross.
Love
Whether it
that.
be for, a short season, or however long I'm going to be with somebody. Like I just want to leave a positive impact. And when I read your mission statement in the book, I was like, this lady gets it, you
Love
know.
that.
So
That's
so
awesome.
a couple just last quick questions as we round out the interview. If there's somebody reading or listening to this interview and they are thinking about advancing their career in staffing, and what advice do you have for that young account manager that might be working a desk that dreams of being a COO someday? Like, what advice do you give that person?
Don't give up and just have a lot of grit, because this business is you're only as good as your last hire, right? Like that's the quote you always hear and will forever hear. And it's just, just keep persevering because it's such a fun ride. It's not easy, but just don't give up. And that's something that, our team, we always say, and also find people around you that you have fun with. Like you have to make it fun.
Yeah,
Like that's you can get through all the struggles and all the positives and everything, but it's all about the people you work with and make it fun.
I love that. And that's good advice. Now, the last question I have, and this is more based on your COO role, and I know that you've probably
Yeah.
mentored people over the years. I don't want the message of this monthly issue to come across that everybody has to ascend to the C-suite. Like I want it to
Yeah.
be clear that success is whatever you dream it to be by your standards only. So sometimes you get to a station in your professional career where you feel like this is where I want to be. You feel complete, you feel fulfilled. So how do you mentor those people that might have stopped going up and allow them to
Mhm.
still grow? Like, what is your approach to those people in their journey?
Well, it's like exactly what you said. I love what you said, because success is defined by each individual and where they see that. And it's identifying like what is that internal mission statement of where do you want yourself to be? And then how do you work towards that? And then how do you add value to others in that process? That's the biggest thing. So that's what I always say is really, just sitting down and understanding what does success look like? What do they want it to be? And then how do you help them put a plan there to get there? Or go through the failures to get there too. It's not always, I always say it's life is like a buffet. It's not always a ladder that you climb. You got to pick and choose things and see what you like. And then eventually you'll find your favorites. Like that's the analogy that I like.
I love that. And just more of a tactical question, do you bring that into like performance management or personnel reviews when you're working with your team? Do you like talk about like, hey, how are you serving others? Because it sounds like you have very much of an internal customer,
Yeah.
mindset. Do you bring that into the review process or performance management?
Oh, always. Yeah. We actually do internal, we have kind of DNA awards every month as well, where, we, instead of looking at high performers, it's like, certain awards within kind of our DNA pillars around like collaboration, integrity, respect, things like that. And
Wow.
reward those types of things that we see as well. So it's a big piece of what we do.
I love that. I love that. Well, Kim, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to share with us at Staffing Monthly and just impart your kind of experience on the journey that you've been through. And like I said, I tell you, I'm grateful that you had the courage to share it and that you did put it out there. It was not lost on me, the courage that actually took. It was palpable when I was reading it. And anyone out there, it's a chapter worth reading, as they all are. Go get the book. If you're watching this right now, the Audible book is actually dropped already. So definitely go get one or the other or both. But Kim, if people want to reach out to you and learn more about your journey or how you operate or get advice from you or just have you kind of in their orbit, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, anyway, but probably LinkedIn's the easiest. And then it always just goes straight to my email. But I'd love anybody to reach out. I would welcome it. I'd love to chat. So anytime.
I love that. And I'll get your LinkedIn link right here on page so people can click if they want to connect with you. So thank you so much, Kim, for being here and just continue on your mission of empowering others.
Thank you so much.